So the Canon R10 has been out for quite a while, and I've had this camera for nearly 2 years. And honestly, it's had many different lenses on it, but my favourite of all the lenses I have used on this camera is not the lens you would expect. Canon do a wide range of different focal ranges and different price range of lenses. And honestly, my favourite of all of them has been this tiny little 16mm lens. Now on the Canon R10, because it's a APS-C sensor, so it's a crop sensor, this you see around a 25mm field of view, so you don't see the 16mm. Now, one of the great things about this 16mm is the fact it's an f2.8. So although it's not as wide as, say, the 50mm RF lens, it is still very, very good. And what I like about this is it's a lot more usable in more situations than, say, a 50mm. This is really great for things like landscape photography, it's decent for vlogging, it's also great for video where you are setting the scene or you want to show a little bit more. Now with the crop sensor, because this sees around 25mm, it's exceptionally usable. And also with this, the autofocus in this lens with the Canon R10 is really good. This lens, over the period of time that I've owned it, has utterly shocked me. The amount of times I have used this I've lost track, and for a few reasons. At the 25 with the Canon R10, it is possible to vlog with this lens. Now, the key factor with this setup and the Canon R10 is the fact that the Canon R10 and this becomes so small. The R10 is a tiny little camera anyway, but put the 16mm on, it really doesn't get much bigger. I am able to fit this lens and this camera in my coat pocket. It's also great if you've got it on a strap and you want to hide it in coats if you're going somewhere that you think your camera's going to be at risk of being stolen, or if you're going inside where photography isn't always allowed. You can simply just hide this out of the way. I don't have to put it in my bag all the time. Some of the things that have shocked me with this are, one, the fact that it is capable of doing some macro photography. Now, it's not a true macro lens, but this does much better close-up shots than I ever expected it to do. Also, with the Canon R10 and this setup, because this doesn't get a dedicated focus ring or a control ring, it's swappable. Now, one of the things I like about the Canon R10 and this setup is the fact that you have the ability to swap between auto and manual on the front of the camera. So you can put this lens into manual very quickly. One of the things I have loved is this has produced some really sharp shots with this camera and this lens. Now at f2.8 it's not the sharpest lens in the drawer, but as you stop down the aperture it does get much sharper and it has great contrast. Is this setup for absolutely everybody? 100% no. But if you enjoy, landscape photography, street photography, where you've got a wide focal range, this setup is absolutely killer. This lens weighs hardly anything. I'm going to pop it onto the screen now. Now, this lens and camera setup is also very light. This is an absolutely great run and gun setup. And I've used this more and more over the last year that I have had this lens and camera together. It's probably my most used setup after my R8 with my 24-70, which says a lot. This lens primarily lives on this camera. Now, I do use it with other cameras to get a wider field of view. On a full frame camera, this will give you a nice wide 16mm, but I actually prefer this lens on an APS-C camera. I find the 16mm on a full frame a little bit too wide for my preference. So there we are, my favourite lens for the Canon R10. Now this isn't going to be the favourite lens for everybody that has an R10 or for every photographer, but this is my most used lens with this camera.